Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom. The Leo King will be live shortly. Please hold on while the collective consciousness loads, and thank you for being a part of the Leo Kingdom.
Hey, what is going on, everybody? It is David Palmer, the Leo King, and today is November the 19th of 2018. We're here at the 12th House Media High Vibe TV studios in the podcast room, here to talk about lots of things about astrology, and of course, I will also be doing my giveaway. I'm giving away 2 weeks worth of contest winners for a 6-month subscription free to futurelife.tv. But I really want to talk about a lot of different things today. I really want to talk about this Mercury retrograde, which has been very interesting to me, especially with its big square to Neptune. There's a lot of interesting aspects that we need to, I think, really cover. Yes, of course, tomorrow in Deep Astrology, we'll be going really deep into it. But I definitely want to at least touch on this basis, especially as this is also the end of Scorpio that we are entering into, and why I think that this is such important subject matter to the fact that we do have Mercury retrograding square Neptune, and the fact that Jupiter is, of course, now in Sagittarius, its home sign, and we've got Mars now in Pisces in a square to that. So there's a lot of distractions, a lot of delusion, a lot of enlightenment at the same time. But there's also kind of this energy that's floating around a little bit too at the same time, which is kind of funny. But, you know, it's not necessarily a horrible thing or anything like that. We are streaming live from YouTube. We are streaming live on Facebook Live. So I will be looking at, you know, some of the stuff from both aspects. Like right now I'm in the YouTube. So if you do have something to say, you know, say it. I'm also going to be here on Facebook. So I'm loading that up right now. And I'll also be able to be looking at the chat and seeing what people are having to say and so forth like that, because it looks like we got lots of people on both. And I do want to get some people's opinions or some people's experiences of how they've been feeling through this Mercury retrograde, because I think it's been a very kind of odd retrograde. Like, it's been very, well, I guess you could say awakening about a lot of different things, but also there is, and I've used this analogy, and some people have put comments saying they don't like it, but this whole kind of like the dangling of a carrot, and are you sure you should really take that carrot kind of aspect. So I want to cover that. But first, what we'll do is we'll have Craig here show what we got going on here. I've got the clock set up, so you're able to see where we're at exactly right now in the astrology. Now, right here, Mercury is at 12 degrees retrograde, and it has been squaring over to this Neptune element, which has been in Pisces. Now, when Mercury went retrograde, just, you know, I mean, how long ago was that? It was just days ago. I already feel like I'm lost in time, and I think that's a good way to kind of put Mercury retrograde square Neptune is lost in time. I also want to remind people, and I think I brought it up in Deep Astrology last week, that the last time that Mercury in retrograde squared Neptune was when it was in Gemini, and that was in late May into June of 2015. So it's been 3.5 years. If I'm doing my math right, yeah, that we've had Mercury retrograde square Neptune. Now, it was much stronger, of course, because Mercury was in Gemini, but now with Mercury at its detriment in Sagittarius, there is, for some people probably experiencing right now, whether that's psychological battles in their mind, some really weird illusions of what can be accomplished, some insight into that being possible, but also needing to have the factual realization that maybe there is some more things you got to do or figure out in order to get there. Now, if we can also go back to the chart here, I do want to show people this Mars element. Mars right now is at 2 degrees of Pisces, and it is squaring Jupiter at 2 degrees of Sagittarius. So we have a Mars square Jupiter in mutable. We have Mercury square Neptune. You know, there's a lot here of this Piscean Sagittarian square. Now, Mars square Jupiter as well is kind of jumping before looking broader or having done all the research or jumping into experiences that might not be exactly what we exactly think that they'll be. Could be almost too excited, and then, you know, but you do learn a lot there. And with Mercury square Neptune, I think we've all been kind of pulled away from this reality in a way. I've been trying to say in my daily horoscope, especially for today, trying to kind of get ourselves back on track in reality, but everything's been kind of really quickly been kind of it's like a bunch of papers on a desk just being shuffled off really fast and not really wanting to pick them all up, and then kind of wanting to go into another room and do something else and kind of putting those shuffled papers falling off, you know, towards another day to clean them up. And I think that in our lives right now, there's a lot of shuffling of energy all over the place, unsurety about a lot of things. And I think when we have this unsurety, and especially with the sun finishing in Scorpio, I think it can make it a little bit difficult for us to feel, you know, truly, you know, empowered. I think that this, for some people, can become almost a little, I guess you could say, scared, and not kind of in a fear-based, but, and maybe for some, and that's why I really want to go into the chat room and see, you know, what people are really feeling here, because, you know, and I want to look, I'm going to check on Facebook real quick here. Some people could maybe feel like this is a little creepy. Somebody just put that. I know I felt when Mercury squared Neptune in retrograde way back in 2015, you know, I was going through panic disorder, thought I was losing my mind. Although I'm very mercurial Gemini-ish, I'm not very mercurial Sagittarian. So for me, it almost is kind of my question of my beliefs lately, a question of, you know, my outlook on my life. But for some, I just want to put out that red flag, which is a positive thing, as a kind of a lifeguard. I think that astrologers are like lifeguards. Like here in California, when the waves get really bad, we put up a red flag. It just means, you know, there's a lot of intense rip tides. There's a lot of big waves. Like, you know, it might be very dangerous to swim. Doesn't mean you can't swim. I mean, we know in the surf community, red flags are awesome because it's like the waves are going to be more intense and cool. But my big kind of alert here to people is some people might feel like they're losing their sense of, I don't want to say identity, but mind, or think they're losing their mind, or might even be becoming aware of psychological issues in themselves right now. And a lot of that is normal. And a lot of that is learning to accept it. From my lessons from 3.5 years ago from a transit like this, when I thought I was losing my mind, you know, it's kind of scary because no matter what, there's no way that you can feel like you can pull out of it or something, or it'll never go away. And I do want to tell people that it does go away. Like, it's not something that just continues to just stay. You know, it definitely finds a way to work itself out. And a lot of it is learning to, number one, realize that we have a lot of pressure right now with Saturn approaching Pluto in Capricorn, and the South Node here in Capricorn. there's this element of us feeling like we need to get things done, and we have to keep getting things done. But right now we're at a time with Mars and Pisces squaring Jupiter. Jupiter just entered Sag. I mean, you got to remember, Pisces and Sagittarius are the energies that come before the signs in which Mars is exalted. So I'm going to show you guys in the chart what that means. And this is kind of like a little bit of an astrology lesson here at the same time too. So if we do look at Aries, which is a Mars ruled sign, and if we do look at Capricorn, where Mars is exalted, Mars wants to be in Aries or in Capricorn because it wants to get things done. Okay, it wants to actually take action. It wants to move into things. But Sagittarius and Pisces is where we have to stew our belief systems, our spiritual systems, our our deeper kind of selves, and whether or not we are willing energetically and have cleared the energy, because they're both mutable signs, and whether or not we can undertake such big kind of outer reality experiences. And since Mars now is in Pisces, and we've got Neptune in Pisces, and we've got Chiron in Pisces, there's an element right now where Mars is not happy. Mercury is not happy being in Sagittarius, of course, because it's such a big world of trying to understand. The mind is much broader than the basic sense of thoughts and analytics and numbers. There's a lot of beliefs in there. There's a lot of subconscious elements as well. There's a lot of conditioning. One thing about Sagittarius is culture. And so there's also this culture identification in our brains that have been conditioned. And I think we see that a lot in the political spectrum today, that we tend to choose our side politically based off our culture, based off how, and the culture doesn't just mean your country. It means also as well, kind of the beliefs that were surrounding you when you were conditioned. The kind of culture can even be involved in the state you live or the city that you live, the way that you were brought up, especially since the North Node is in Cancer. There's a lot of stuff being brought up about, our conditioning as well, and how that emotional conditioning is in conflict now, or is looking at what we can achieve and where we can go. But we're at a time that we are stewing on a lot of big things, but there is a lot of things to stew on first. It's like kind of putting a soup together. What ingredients are going to be the best, what things are going to be the best for us to make the exact soup we want. But it's almost like we're trying to build 25 soups. We're playing with all the flavors. And we're also looking at our conditioning and how our belief systems are. And there's a conflict here of spiritual belief that is just beginning at the end of 2018 here and going into 2019. I mean, this is where you see somebody like a preacher, let's say at a Christian church, question their own faith, or switch. We've seen it in the spiritual community. Won't name names, but we all know who. We had a famous tarot reader who quit tarot and became a Christian and now promotes Christianity, which there's nothing wrong with that. But people start to kind of make these jumps really intensely here during a period like this. And this is definitely one of those periods in which we've never seen in our lives. The last time, of course, Jupiter squared Neptune was in 1852. So it would be kind of interesting if I could show everybody that, because I think, I've talked about it. I haven't shown it in an actual chart to everybody yet. But, if we do look at 1852 and we do calculate 2185, where is this thing going here? 2185. Maybe I had the wrong 1852. All right, 1852. So Jupiter was in Sagittarius and at 2 degrees exactly on November 19th. That's what's so funny about the Jupiter cycle, is you can pretty much call it to the year, to every 12 years, right? Now, in 1852, there was Neptune at 8 degrees, which we've already gone past 8 degrees. And look at how interesting. Uranus was in Taurus, just like it's going to be approaching again. Look at Venus was in Libra. But here we go. Let's actually move the days forward. So the Sun and Jupiter also met exactly at 3 degrees and 4 degrees, exactly where it will meet on Monday. And not in a big square like we're going to have, but that was square in Neptune then. Mercury was in Sag then, and we had the nodes actually in a little bit ahead. But here is where I'm going to show you where Jupiter and Neptune square. So Jupiter squares Neptune 7-8, so it's a couple more days away. There it is. Jupiter squares Neptune on December 17th, 1852. Now, if a lot of people really haven't done their history yet, I actually tried to write this in my magazine, but it did not get published because I think the editors thought it might have been a little bit too much energy to talk about. But in 1852 was an election. At the end, of course, when would this have been? It would have been October. So it was, or November is always the elections, right? So, we should have it right here. Oh, come on. Oh, that's births. I was like, what's going on here? There was a U.S. presidential election. Okay, so the presidential election of 1852. How funny, we just went through an election for the midterms, but in 1852, when Jupiter was squaring Neptune, we went through a very intense election, which was with Franklin Pierce and Winfield Scott. This was the last Whig Party candidate, okay? And Franklin Pierce did win the election. He was a Democrat, and he just destroyed the Whig Party. It was the last Whig Party candidate. It was then 8 years later when we would see Abraham Lincoln win the presidency as a Republican and change the Whig Party to a Republican. But Franklin Pierce, believe it or not, was very intense and divisive in the country. He is also known as, if I look it up here, Franklin Pierce president ranking. He's kind of ranked as on the best presidents list. He's presidents ranked from worst to best. Out of the 45, Franklin Pierce is rated literally at the very bottom. He received low ratings when it came to pursuing equal justice for all Americans. He signed into law the Kansas-Nebraska Act, which allowed residents of new territories to decide on the legality of slavery for themselves. And so what he did was he created a very kind of divisive energy about slavery, which is why we ended up in a civil war coming into 1861 when Neptune went into Aries, and the whole entire process was before Abraham Lincoln. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this up is because there's this belief war going on in the world. And this belief war is not only in ourselves, but this belief war is happening externally around us. So we're contemplating our beliefs, we're contemplating what's right and wrong, our conditions, our culture. These things are becoming very intense. And back then, it was interesting because if you actually even go back and you do like 1852 political cartoons, so managing a candidate, let's see here. This is about the Whigs, and there was one here that was extremely intense. What is this one? Eclipse and no eclipse. Oh, you know, me as an astrologer, I'm like, oh, this is about eclipses. Here's the terrible rout and total destruction of the Whig Party. Let's look at this picture here, and we can do a little zooming. So, terrible rout and a total destruction of the Whig Party. So this is when the Whig Party totally got lost, okay? And it was interesting on how intense the manner of imagination and visualization of political cartoons became very extreme. I mean, even in this picture, there are people like drowning. Is that a horse drowning right there? We've got, you know, the literally like gunpowder shootings. It was a very gnarly time. A lot of people don't talk about this time. It was also at the same time that Uncle Tom's Cabin came out in 1853. I think it was 1852 when it was done, but it was 1853 in which it did come out. So if we actually look at some of the dates here, 1851 was when it was published, but published as a book in 2 volumes in 1852. And then it was followed by A Key to Uncle Tom's Cabin in 1853, which is all during the Jupiter square Neptune, the last time they were in their home signs. And the reason why I bring this stuff up is because in yourself right now, there is going to be a lot of questions in how you look at your life, how you are going to present your beliefs, how you're going to present, you know, the core of who you are. And we are in a world where there is a major clash on belief, visualization. Now, this is the first time in our life that Neptune, which rules the media, is not going to be pictures and drawings, but visual news, you know, Facebook videos, CNN, Fox News, MSNBC, the whole media are going to be painting their opinions. You know, it's going to be hard to find where is any sort of, you know, truth, because we're all not in a place of even really trying to, I think, understand what truth is, but we're all kind of picking a belief side and going in that. And that goes into yourself outside of the political spectrum. In your own self, trying to kind of visually put out these belief systems out there in your life, and trying to make, whether it's a dream come true or, you know, switching your ideologies as well. And this is where I think a lot of people wonder, like, is the world going to shit in a handbag? No. I mean, if you look at 1852 and 1853 with the divisiveness and this battle about, you know, slavery, it all did eventually work itself out in the right way. And I always believe that the light wins. And I think it's very hard when you have planets in their home sign and their dignity, you know, facing off. That's why, like, when the moon's in Cancer and it opposes Saturn, it's always going to be very intense for the next couple of years, because the moon's in dignity and Saturn's in dignity. Or now we're going to have Jupiter square Neptune now for the next year, even though it's only going to really exactly hit 3 times. And I don't even think it actually really hits, except for that one time. But, you know, like, very hard. But I will say, there is an aspect to all this where all these dignity aspects make it very intense, the energy we're about to enter into. And this is the moment now until the end of the year, because, and we'll show the chart for the end of the year. Let's go to now, and then let's move the days to December 31st. And let me, I'll full screen this real quick. And if you see on December 31st, Mars comes into Aries, its home sign of dignity. So we start the year with Mars in dignity, Neptune in dignity, Saturn in dignity, Jupiter in dignity. That's a lot. So what is that? That's 1, 2, 3, 4 energies in their dignity, in their home elements. And that's bringing up a lot because Mars is going to square Saturn in dignity, which is very intense. Jupiter will be exactly squaring Neptune as we come into January, same time. And then Jupiter, of course, squaring Neptune, right? And then Mars squaring Saturn. I mean, that's intense stuff that's going on. And the eclipses, which are going to happen with, of course, we're going to have the last full lunar eclipse in Leo, which is going to add to the drama to it all. So there's definitely us being prepared for the year right now and stewing on where we want to take things. And this expedition of our higher self, this expedition of our spiritual calling, our true authentic self as we finish Scorpio here is a big aspect to play. And I just wanted to do this live tonight to have people realize at this moment, even if you're trying to get a million things done and you're trying to be on track, it's okay. The tracks are going to be very intense and very upfront in your face at the beginning of this year. And it is important to kind of take this time behind the scenes to get prepared for that. So if it takes a couple extra days to get something finished, that's okay. If it takes a couple extra days to process a situation, whether that's emotional, relationship-wise, or any aspect of that, that's okay. There's a lot of exploration going on in our psyche. There's a lot of exploration going on in our soul. And there's a lot to prepare for 2019 being such an extreme year with so many planets at dignity with Saturn and Pluto, which for the first time, if we can go to the chart real quick, will be within 10 degrees orb for the first time in Capricorn since 1517 into 1518. And with Saturn in its home sign, that makes this Saturn-Pluto conjunction major. It also is the very beginning aspects of the end to the 1983 conjunction of Saturn and Pluto, which happened in Libra, dealing with relationships and bringing the relationship game to a whole nother extreme level as one cycle ends about relationship and a new one begins with political and just our overall lifelong destiny and so forth. And with all these planets at home, I mean, this really starts to bring into alignment some very extreme and some very intense, realities that we are going to move into. And what's also interesting to me is if we look at the New Year's this year, there are no planets retrograde except for Uranus, which is kind of interesting to me because out of all the things in the zodiac that deal with, raising to a higher vibration, the collective people, groups, and it's in Aries, there is an element that all these energies are on to move forward, but the one element that's moving backwards is this understanding of the world, the identity of the world, the alliances of the world, and that is going to be, I think, one of the big things in yourself too, the alliance that you are building with your identity and the fractured elements of so many parts of yourself. I mean, if we looked at this as kind of like a psychological aspect, this could be kind of the understanding of I guess you could say whether that's, I forgot what the diagnosis is, like whether that's like personality disorder or having multiple personalities. With all this, Neptune, Sag stuff, Uranus, Mars, Aries, Piscean elements with the soul, Capricorn stuff about your identity. I mean, there's, and your purpose. I mean, there really is kind of so many personalities you are playing with of what is the best one to be in yourself. And I think that now, if we go back to now, I mean, with Mars in Pisces, which is the 12th house solar-wise, it is at the end of the chart. There is an element to this where no matter what, we just went through a gnarly Mars 2018 year as a retrograde with the South Node in Aquarius and squaring Uranus. I mean, this has definitely been a hard year for Mars, and it's continuing a hard year for Mars. It will have its happiness, literally December 31st, 2018. And with Saturn in its home sign, and with Mars in its home sign, and with Jupiter as well, which at the same token will start its trine to Mars. Mars is going to be very happy. And we are in a very Martian energy right now as I'm talking, as the sun's finishing in Scorpio, which rules Pluto and Mars, and the moon in Aries. And there's a lot of us wanting to get to where we want to go. Venus in Libra has just finished its major retrograde. There's a lot on the table here, and especially with Venus in opposition to Uranus after a retrograde in its home sign of Libra, we have never seen that element, because the last time that Venus went retrograde 8 years ago, and maybe look at your life, Uranus was toying with going into Aries, and then, it was then coming back into Pisces. So it did not oppose Uranus and Aries. So we are getting ready in the weeks to come for Venus to oppose Uranus. So this is a time for us where nothing is set on the table. And everything is in a little bit of a disarray. And I think that that's an element for everybody to kind of consider when they're thinking about life right now, and to not freak out about that aspect, because I think that that can be a little bit difficult for people when it becomes this element of, well, I need to have everything figured out right now. I'm coming into the new year, and and with Mars coming towards Neptune, and Mars coming towards Chiron, and with these elements that are quite difficult for Mars. Yet Saturn is amping up its energy towards coming to Pluto, the amplifier, the extremist. The South Node is there to kind of add to this more extreme element of physicality, or actually physical manifestation of those elements of Saturn, Pluto. We become extremely intensely focused on reaching this destiny, reaching this quest. Yet everything is on the table right now on how and what that's going to look like. And there's a lot of really weird energy that we are dealing with on the inside. And you got to remember that Neptune and Pisces just deals with a private energy. The sun finishing in Scorpio deals with a very deep private part as well of your deeper desires and wants that are very difficult to expose. There is a backdrop here of us really kind of pulled out at the moment, and really trying to associate, or I guess you could say disassociate with reality, and process, is this really where I want to go? Is this really what I want to do? Because what is coming in 2019, literally on the day before, on New Year's Eve, is a new ball game in all of our lives that we've never even in our lives could have ever even experienced, period. Now, of course, we could say that about life because it's ever changing every second. But we have never been into and I'm going to use a baseball analogy, we've never been to a ball game with a stadium this full. We've never been to a ball game where this many people are watching energetically. We've never been to a ball game where we've all really felt like we are at the plate and have a chance to really make our mark. And this is where that collective consciousness is at a space that it's undefined at the moment, as far as the individuals of that collective consciousness which make it up are at such a crossroads in themselves. So when you actually tap into the collective consciousness right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, because individually there is so much uncertainty on the planet. And so I guess you could say that the only certainty there really is at this moment is learning to go into your emotions, learning to understand where you really want to go, and what emotional situations are you going to have to confront with Uranus squaring the nodes, and Venus also will be squaring these nodes, that, are going to, are you going to rise above some of these lower vibrational needs and wants or relationships that are not really emotionally and on the path for you? Or are you going to really invest, I think, fully in, dealing with this stuff emotionally differently and shifting into a whole nother gear and kind of putting the quest first, I guess you could say. So I wanted to put that out there because I know it can be kind of trying in really weird times. I do want to change up the energy though. And I do want to say that before we go into this contest right here, I do want to say that there's a lot of positivity to this. Just realize that this moment right here is getting ready for the big launch in your life. And so it's okay to feel all over the place. It's okay to feel like things are not fully sticking or things are not fully understood, that things are kind of all over. That's okay. And once you accept that element and you know what's ahead and you see that, then you can realize it's a lot like, cleaning a house before guests come over. Might feel like it's just dirty right now, but somehow miraculously, by the time it's all cleaned and right, your house feels like $1 million when it didn't just hours prior. Or when you go wash your car and you're driving it and it's a brand new car and it feels like shit. And then the next thing you know, you get it washed, you clean it nice. Now it feels like a brand new car and it feels like a totally different car. Our souls are going through that right now. And I think one element too to remember with Pisces is it is a cleansing element of soul. It is a washing away, or in Judeo-Christian element, kind of literally a washing away of sin. So there also is the confronting of sin as well, or the confronting of the things in which you have difficulty with dealing with, the things that you have difficulty with exposing of your own, desires and wants that, and Santos Bonacci says it really well, especially like the age of Pisces and how it is co-ruled by Jupiter and Neptune, and how we've been, because the first half of Pisces, which we are literally at in the galactic understanding of understanding the ages, we are in the Jupiter ruled spot, which is more of a greedy, especially Jupiter and Pisces. People wouldn't associate it with greed, but it really is kind of like, if you, and he hasn't talked about this part, but he pushes it as greed or capitalism and stuff like that, or even just, other elements, especially Jupiter and Pisces kind of is this, whatever you want, you kind of spiritually, magically try and do whatever you want for. But I would say that another better way of looking at Jupiter and Pisces is, which we're at that last couple degrees here of the edge of Pisces, is in the age I'm speaking, is, it is kind of this spiritual religion stuff. It is kind of this really weird moment in our lives where, drugs, escapism, and all that are going to be at their highest. And escapism is something that is extreme at this moment. And so there's needs to understand those boundaries. And I think that's why the sun is trining Chiron now, if you understand those boundaries, because then there's a much better element to all this understanding, because we all just kind of want to escape. And there's a world of Saturn and Pluto that's in front of us in Capricorn that we can't. We can't run to the hills. We can't get on a boat and jump into the middle of the ocean and just float away, because Saturn and Pluto will find a way to either A, have some other ship's pirates take capture of your ship, B, maybe the hills get evacuated for a fire or something. And there's, the fire's been horrible in here in California. It's been really difficult. I know a lot of people actually that live in the Malibu area, and some people that are way up north that have been really affected. But there is no escape. I just want to let people know that. And we can actually believe in some really weird elements of ourself and create characters of escape. you know, and that's what's going to be the most interesting part, are what are these characters that people are going to develop here into 2019 that form their escape? What are the relationships? What are the situations that we form to create this high form of this kind of belief of creating another reality outside of the reality in which is here? And I think we're about to see people kind of living in their own kind of, I don't want to say psychosomatic, I would almost say schizophrenic reality-based situations to escape. I want to say this last thing before I go to finish this, because I want to get Craig home and it's late, is that I had a great conversation this weekend with, I was with Leanna, I was with a couple of friends. We went to this bar to play pool, and we ended up playing darts. And I met this really cool couple guys, and I met this cool chick. We were all having a conversation out front about, why do, in America, about gun control and things like that. We were all having very interesting, deep convos. And I think a lot of us had come to the conclusion, too, that it really is about, mental health. It really is about, where people are sitting in their spiritual and emotional places in their life and their psychological elements as well. And right now, we are entering into, a place where people are going to create their own kind of, we'll use the term schizophrenic. I don't even know if it gets such a negative term attached to it, but that we are entering into a collective conscious crack of schizophrenia, because the reality is insane. And we are trying to almost create sane realities in an insane world. And everybody's on their own viewpoint and their own view of it all. And so when you mix in a million different views, billions of different views, you get a wild feeling in the collective. And it can feel intense for some people that they just want to escape, because they're not in an understanding that the collective right now is stirring and redefining itself. It always does. The collective consciousness is not just this solid thing. It is a solid thing in the sense that it is all connected to all of us and the universe and to God as one. But that constantly is changing. And so the collective conscious at the moment is going through a psychological aspect and a deep-rooted spiritual question of its integrity of spirituality and what that is defined, the beliefs around that system, the roots of escape to a reality that is trying to change intensely, but people are not maybe emotionally prepared for that change. And that's what's making things extreme. That's what's making things feel off for some people. For some others that are aware of this, it's pretty easy to deal with because you can see it that way. And that's why I tried to show people at the very beginning of this whole 1852 Jupiter square Neptune at the end of the year, the whole, you can go into the political spectrum then, you can follow the political spectrum of the 4 years of Franklin Pierce and why he is ranked as one of the lowest presidents of all time because of the divisiveness. But is it really the president? Was it really Franklin Pierce? Or even in right now, and I'm not supporting Trump or anything, is it really Trump? Or is it that the universe is throwing us through all of us to experience experiences that are throwing our belief systems and throwing our subconscious elements into them and mixing into this psychosomatic kind of schizophrenic reality-based, potion or spell that we all entrance ourselves under. Whatever is around us that is subconsciously, culturally, and with Neptune being the at its home dealing with media and dealing with movies and dealing with television and dealing with, sending information in, kind of a Wizard of Oz way, it also brings up years and years and lifetime of the way subconscious elements are when it comes to psychological conditioning, because you have all the elements for psychological conditioning that is coming up and being shifted. So a good example, I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s. It was normal. It was normal to go to fast food, okay? It was like normal. In the 2000s, it started to change. Now, psychologically, it's harder for people in my generation. Like, we didn't judge people if we saw them going through fast food. You know, if they went through the drive-through, it was like, whatever. Yeah, you're going to get McDonald's tonight because you can't come home and make food, whatever. Now, I'll be hanging out with other spiritual people, and I've literally been in a car or been by them, and they point over and go, I can't believe that person's driving through that fast food place or whatever. You know, there becomes this psychological conditioning. And it's funny because I'll usually talk to them and they're a millennial or something like that, you know, and so they weren't really conditioned into it. They were conditioned into it being bad. Or a good thing, another element is like the psychological conditioning of like my grandfathers. You know, they read the paper every morning, and that whole aspect is gone pretty much in many areas. So we kind of are at this place where we cannot come into a place of judgment because the psychological conditioning is at a reevaluation point. And the scary part, but it is positive for what we're changing with psychological conditioning in ourselves, but the scary part is this disassociative aspect to reality that's being created by others that is going to go off into a very weird place. And I think as a collective consciousness, we have to not shame and not judge, and instead be leaders that show a direction that deals with the reality that can't be escaped, that it can change to be a better place without shaming, without telling people that this is the right way or this is the wrong way, but by being open. Because the second you start, and this is where this is going to loop back to this conversation at the bar I had this weekend, the kids that are shooting up people are the ones that are bullied a lot. They're shamed for wearing whatever. Maybe they have some weird situations, because what do you do in class? Oh, you know, that kid's weird. You're that way. And the spiritual community is doing that more than kids in school today. The spiritual community is judging everything from, you didn't sage, you don't use crystals, you know, you still are a Christian, but you use tarot. You know, there's so much of that it's creating a disruption in our spiritual community. I dealt with some really heavy comments last night about that I smoke cigarettes, you know, and it was just like, and I'm not triggered. It's just like, I smoke cigarettes right now. I might not smoke them again. I've quit for many times, but we're at a very tipping point here where reality and the escape from reality become a fine line. And it's very important for us to try and find a way to not shame, show the way, and deal with our own psychological conditional states, and not try and projectile vomit them on others. And now we'll get to some fun stuff. We are going to, we are going to give away 2 future life readings. So we will start with the Facebook element first. We'll see. We're actually going to give away 3, because I'm going to do one on Facebook, one on Twitter, because I know there was a lot of people. And let's do posts. And I think I can go to photos. Yeah, all right. So public posts. Posted by. Should be like a Tagged location. Date posted. No. Tagged location. No. Photos you've seen. No. Posted by your friends and groups. No. Remember last time? Oh, I think we did this. Yeah, here we go. Man, this thing's getting harder and harder. You'd think that Facebook would have had their shit together here. Maybe we're not going to do photos. Maybe we'll do posts and we'll filter it source public posts. Posts by anyone. I just don't like that it shows my own stuff. Posted by. This is such Mercury retrograde bullshit. Posting groups. Public posts. Well, we'll just go down this list until we get to... although it's showing nobody here. It's so stupid. Photos. Public photos. All right, there's some people in here. You know what? Let's just go to my page. Some people tagged me here. I think I can go to see all photos. Photos of you. Okay, yeah. We got some people in here. But there's so many more. I know there are. Is it really? $2018. Well, that helps. Here we are. All right. So we're going to pick one person from Facebook right now for a free Future Life subscription. And, you know, this person pops up, Jennifer Harris. So Jennifer, I think that's her name. Jennifer Harris has one Future Life subscription for 6 months. Congratulations. Thank you for sharing it. Now we are going to do tags. We are going to do... now, Instagram's much easier. There's a lot on here, and at least I can do the most recent ones. Now, there's a lot of people here on Instagram, okay? Lots of you. I want to say thank you so much because it's been pretty overwhelming, all the love. And don't forget, if you do post, you are still entered no matter what for the free reading I'm giving away at the end of this month. So we are going to, let's see here. When did we do the last one? Well, it doesn't really matter. There's a lot of you all on here, which I really appreciate. So we're going to do a little, I'm not looking, and this is the person. All right. Let me see if I can find their page. Jessica Corson. and she is one. So thank you so much. Yay. Thank you. All right. Now we'll do Twitter. And I've got the Leo King is the latest. And we have people who have, set it up here. I'm wondering if we do photos. Yeah, there we go. And thank you for everybody on Twitter, too. Really appreciate it very much. So I'm going to go up and where are we going to go? We're going to go do one more time. And I want to kind of do it like Wheel of Fortune or something. And this person, Kelly Weaver, won this one. You won. Well, thank you, everybody, for doing that. Remember, don't forget, don't forget that you can apply and win, and that's all you got to do is put a picture with the 2019 astrology guide, and you'll win. Now, to close out this whole thing, don't be discouraged because these times can feel discouraging. Jupiter in Sag is awesome, but also Saturn in Capricorn is awesome. So it kind of is I don't want to call it a wash, but we're kind of in a mellow, like toned, excited, imaginative, but we feel a little scattered. And that's okay. And at the end of the day, just remember that everything I said at the beginning of this video with the collective consciousness, the psychological and soul, disassociation, and even disassociating from things that you value very much in your life, or, things in life that you really feel that you're certain about, becoming uncertain, is normal at this time. And just get through this holiday season and work through it and go with the flow and be easy on yourself. Still show up and do the things that must be done, but do more of the prep work and get everything aligned right. Don't worry if it doesn't become exactly every second just powerhouse. We're going to enter 2019 into quite a powerhouse. Thanks so much for being here. Thanks for being a part of the Leo King Network. Oh, that's right. My Jupiter and Sag videos are available now, which you can check those out. They're pretty cool at inclusiveastrology.com. And I think I'll take one question from Facebook and one question from YouTube, just so people don't piece. But definitely check out the Jupiter and Sag videos. So I'm going to start with YouTube first, since we've got 453 people watching. I think we had more, but some people left. They probably thought I was just piecing out. So I'll give you a second, YouTubers, to throw up a quick question. I'll pick one. Facebook, I'm doing the same thing. Going to pick a question. We'll see if anybody is ready. So I'll give everybody a couple seconds to put the question down. I'm going to pick one from Facebook, one from YouTube. And what am I going to talk about for the 1 minute here? What crazy story about this weekend? This weekend, what did I do Friday night? I don't even know. See, this whole time thing in Mercury Retrograde. Friday night, gosh, how do I not remember Friday night? And I don't drink or anything. I think I worked, sadly enough. Saturday night, I went out to dinner with Leanna, and then we went out to a couple of these bars with some friends and played darts and pool and played darts for hours, and it was really fun. I had some really deep intellectual conversations. And then yesterday I worked. Rested in the day, but worked really late last night. All right, so we got some questions. So we're going to start with YouTube first. And there's only one I'm picking, so whoever, it is, it is. Here's a good question by Jill C. When will Mercury be in its next best placement? Well, I would say that is going to come, Jill, and for everybody, when Mercury enters into Aquarius. One, it's going to be in nice sextiles to Jupiter. It's going to be in it's going to be in a good space. It's also going to be before Uranus enters into Aries. So, I think Mercury in Aquarius is going to be the best position. Then Mercury will take a while because after this retrograde, the next retrograde is March into April, which is Mercury retrograde in Pisces, which is at its fall position. It'll be on top of Neptune. Uranus will be entering Taurus. Chiron will be getting ready to exit Pisces as Mercury is going to cover all that weird space there at the end of the zodiac. That's going to be the weirdest retrograde of our lives that we've ever seen. If you think this one's weird, which this one's not that, I mean, this one can be very weird, like I described at the beginning of this whole video, but the next best placement is Mercury in Aquarius, which is a couple months away. It was a good question, though, and that's because it's going to be in Aquarius. There's no longer a south node here. It's intellectual. It's an air sign. It's going to be figuring things out. It's going to be Uranus at the end of Aries in direct motion. So Mercury will be in, Uranus's home, and Uranus will be, in a very Martian-ruled sign. So it'll definitely be very clear and direct and understanding and figuring things out right before it goes into a crazy, lost world of what's going on. So that's a great question. Now, in the Facebook world, our questions. What do we got here? Let's see. Trying to get more specific. There was one good question here, but I don't really, it's more of an opinion thing. Like the question was, will things get worse before they get better collectively? I think that's more of an opinionized aspect of things. I'll pick another question, but it's like, I don't think there is this worse or better or blah, blah, blah. I really just believe like we're just experiencing things and it's to your own viewing. I mean, let's take the forefathers, for example. Do you really think that, I'm sure they didn't like being taxed without, representation. I don't think they enjoyed having to create a revolutionary war, but it was also their kind of duty or fate. So, I mean, even though maybe they didn't want to do it, they probably really enjoyed stepping into those roles and becoming the leaders of a new nation. So is that really worse or better? I don't know. There's a lot of questions when you kind of start to look at life that way. This is kind of a personal question on Facebook. Are the fires in California, are you doing okay there? I'm fine. I'm in Orange County and South LA area. The fires are not there. They're in Malibu. They're in a little bit east of Malibu, a little North LA, and Northeast LA, like up there. And then of course, really bad up in Northern California. So I'm okay, but I know a lot of people who are not. I will say that fires are pretty common here in California. These ones, though, are kind of on the extreme. But this, I think, is very in deep correlation with Uranus that went back into Aries. Jupiter went into Sag that week. And then on top of it, the big one, I think, is that Uranus coming back into Aries. Every time Uranus has come back into Aries, we had the Fukushima earthquake. We had those. And another element is the solar eclipses were in Leo, and we're still in that 6-month cycle. And we also had the great American eclipse last year, which went through the Pacific Northwest as the beginning point in America. So, we're kind of finishing up a lot of that energy there. Last question, and I'm done. Oh, here's a good question. It feels like so many elders are leaving right now. Is this part of the times? So many lost in paradise. I don't know what do means, but I think that this is a changing of the guard. One way to put it is Uranus rules over generations. So with Pluto, this Uranus opposition Pluto element to generations of Pluto. That's what I'm trying to mean. So a good example is Uranus right now is at the end of Aries. So it's opposing the Pluto Librans of 83 and 84. Which I'm in that boat because I'm Pluto Libran. So it's like the calling of the guard is coming into that point. And then Uranus comes into Taurus for 7 years, which is going to hit a bunch of young generation. It's going to, Uranus opposing Pluto Scorpios from 85 all the way into 98, all the way in 99 up in there. In that 7-year process is going to bring a bunch of young people, up fast. And the Scorpio generation, the Pluto Scorpios, are very intense. They are not here to fuck around. And I think that a lot of the elders that have Pluto Cancer, which are much more soft and agile, when I think of when I think of elders today, they're a lot more chilled back and but this generation that's coming in and the generation that we all are, we're not that chilled back. I don't think we're going to be in our older years being elders that are just kind of thinking like how the Dalai Lama is and stuff. And I think that that's where there's a little bit of a rift right now in the belief system of the spiritual community as they look at the traditions of how whatever spiritual people are or anything. Like we're coming into Pluto Scorpio rising, literally, after all the energy's been cleared in Scorpio, after the retrogrades and Saturn and Pluto even, and the Saturn-Pluto conjunction of 85. Like there's this element of, and they didn't actually conjunct, but they were really close in the same sign, but they were both in Scorpio. I mean, this is not going to, our older years are not going to look like the elders of today. We are not going to be that way. And so I think that the elders that are leaving right now, fate-wise, is because the world is about to go through a major change. And not to say that their energy is bad, because somebody might take it that way. It's just that there isn't that energy on the planet anymore as far as that really calm and collected. And so a lot of the Pluto Cancers that were born, through those those 20s and into the 30s and into the early 40s, right before Pluto went into Leo, they are having the North Node go on their Plutos right now. And now Uranus is in opposition to this last Libran generation and the Scorpio generation. So, this is definitely like, I'm a Pluto Libran, so I'm not a Pluto Scorpion. I'm intense, and I'm on the border at 29 degrees, so I get the whole Scorpio thing, and I have planets in Scorpio like Mars and Saturn, but my Pluto's in Libra, so there are still going to be positive, not like, but again, Libra is an intellectual sign. It's going to bring peace, but diplomacy, and it's a cardinal sign that brings diplomacy, and Saturn is exalted in Libra. So it is a little bit harsher, believe it or not, Libra than Cancer. There is not a lot of comfort because you have to confront things. Libra wants to confront a situation, even though people don't think that it does. It does. And Scorpio wants to confront things all the way, even in private corners or even in a bedroom or even in a war, So we're moving into a total different generation. And we're in the elders, in many ways, I think that they're bowing out because the energy is no longer holding that vibration anymore. And I know that one might be kind of harsh or intense, even though it's not trying to be. But it just is what it is. Anyway, thanks for joining me tonight. Remember, get up those magazines with a picture, and every week I'm pulling, and I was a week late, so that's why I pulled, and I gave away another free one. So I just gave away 3. Instagram's the best place to do it with the picture. It's easier for me to pick you and find you. And of course, you always get entered for a free reading. And then, of course, those Jupiter and Sagittarius videos, they're up now at inclusiveastrology.com. I appreciate you all so much. We'll see you for Deep Astrology tomorrow. And I truly appreciate all of you. Thank you for everything. Thank you for all the support. And we'll see you guys tomorrow. Or I hope to see you on futurelife.tv for my daily horoscopes every day and more. My weekly sun sign horoscopes, weekly intuitive, weekly tarot. And there's a lot of other great astrologers and tarot readers on there every day. Take care.